Welcome friends to another 40k video. Today we follow the lion through the novel The Lion, Son of the Forest by Mike Brooks. When we meet the lion, he does not know where he is, and he knows he has woken up in stages, and he is by an actual river surrounded by trees, and he does not know the aged face that greets him. He meets the king, as this person is dubbed, who is fishing on a boat. The king dismisses him, and the lion thinks to walk across the water in answer to this. But there are shadows in the water, and the lion also sees the king is wounded, and as the shadows are drawn to the lion, he's warned to go back by a watcher in the dark. He obeys this order. The watcher says, "This place is home." The lion then glimpses something and walks towards it. The watcher keeps reappearing as he moves along. There is a building, and the watcher says he's not yet strong enough to take the path. It says he must follow his nature to find the strength he needs. So he begins to hunt, and the terrain speaks to him. It says that he is now in another place. As he hunts, he finds the creatures attack. They're hurting humans. He fights them, feeling the need to protect these people, where he once would have found them pathetic. And he slays the three predators. The lion is told that he is on the planet of Kamarth. He visits the camp of the people, and it is there he sees one of his sons, who has been protecting the humans, one of the fallen who had sided against him to fight with Luther, and the memories of his far past return. This marine's name is Zabriel. Zabriel, on seeing his father, fires, and the lion has already moved and pins him down and says his name, and they call each other traitor. And here the lion is told he has been asleep for 10,000 years. Zabriel says he attacked before because he thought the Dark Angels had found him and were there to kill him. The lion thinks that he, thinking of himself, has not always made the best choices, and he asks if Zabriel, through everything, remained loyal. Zabriel says he did, and then he asks the same of the lion, who gives the same response. And then the lion learns that the master of mankind is now worshipped as a god. Zabriel compares the ecclesiarchy to the word-bearers, and then the lion learns all his brothers are gone, and earth is now ruled by the High Lords of Terror. And I love the lion's reaction here. He balls his fist and grits his teeth, and then he asks about his sons, and he learns of Gilliman making the legions into individual chapters with associated successors. The lion hisses, never content with the work of others. He even wanted to improve on the designs of our father. I should have dealt with him when he raised his hand to me on the crag. Why could it not have been him who fell instead of Sanguinius? And it should be very interesting to see if some of that attitude, I'll call it, carries over from the lion, should he ever later meet Rabute. Then, when the sky is dark, the lion learns of the Great Rift and the heretics and mutants, the 10,000 who are the dangers in this area of the galaxy. And the lion says, "My father was a conqueror, and I became a conqueror on his behalf. But that is not my nature. I kill enemies, and all of humanity's enemies are my enemies. I shall demand no promise from the people of Kamarth, and certainly no worship." He spits that word. "But I will kill their oppressors. They may follow me or not, as they wish." They then enter a chaos fortress, and he kills the first cultist they encounter, Morecambe, and seeing the corruption, the lion slays them all. After the lion thinks on how he is now a little slower, and his blows carry a little less force, he then finds and confronts a number of space marines, including the Psyker, who he tells to keep out of his head. And he then fights these traitor Astartes, and he finishes off the leader, who has a thunder hammer, and he finishes him off by removing its head and breaking the back of the leader. But there are more, and the lion scrambles for a weapon. The wrecked wall, as he does this, takes on the appearance of tree trunks, and the landscape changes, and he grips a sword, and the green fades away, and he charges those who remain. He removes the arm from one chaos worshipper, then skewers him to the wall. Then he whips a skinning blade into the other's eye, and bisects the blade through the last traitor, facing him, bisecting his upper body. The lion then speaks to the chaos leader, whose back he broke, about why he feels so drained, and the leader replies, "You got old." They find marines twisted by chaos, imprisoned. They are a successor chapter, I believe, of the Blood Angels. They're called the Ruby Crescents. And with nothing he can do for them, they are so twisted by sorcery, the Lion ends the lives of them. Then he frees the city Kamarth and goes on to free the entire planet. Next he is called by some instinct which he follows, and the landscape around him seems to transition until it seems he's in the forest of Caliban. He and the guard with him try to retrace their steps, but find they can't. The Lion finds a dome of pale stone. He recalls this place from last time, and the Lion wonders if he has found the strength for the path the Watcher told him he should not yet take. Then he encounters more creatures. The Lion has chosen a defensive point, and people speaking Logothic find him, and he finds he is on a planet, Avalos, and he's taken to see the leader, Marshal Haraj. They speak, and she wants her seer to scan the Lion's mind to prove his identity. He learns Terra has sanctioned the Psyker, and mentions how the Emperor outlawed Psykers, but this was overturned in moments of greatest need. He agrees to the scanning, but says she must not linger. It's confirmed who he is, and he's given, at his request, command of the forces of the planet. The Lion feels more of his sons are on this planet, and using his knowledge of the secret signs of the fallen, Zabriel finds more Dark Angels. They agree to see the Lion, 3 of them, and on seeing them he says, I failed my father. I fear I also failed my brothers. I do not wish to fail my sons. And that he now knows many of his sons were deceived by Luther, and they agree to join him. A chaos fleet approaches Avalos. Their forces outnumber the Lion's 2-1. The Lion gives a speech and mentions the Emperor guiding him. Zabriel questions this afterwards. The Lion says he does not think of the Emperor as a god, but can't dispute the master of mankind's power and the chance that the Emperor might be guiding him. And he says it should boost morale as well. He says what he told them is a tool at his disposal. They hurt the enemy forces, so in answer teleport 6 Chaos Marines in Terminator armour onto the bridge of the Lion's ship, and the fight is on. One, Serifax, says he wants the Lion's head. The Lion responds, come and take it, if you can. He wants to keep the attention on him to aid the others. He fires the armour luminous at the Chaos Lord, and the darkness around the Lord stops the shot. A power fist hits the Lion, and he stumbles. His blade is left in the Terminator. He feels some of his ribs are broken. He wants to leap in and tear all the Terminators apart with his hands, but he can't do that now. But he knows the slowness of the Terminators, and he has his wits to aid him in this fight. He eliminates 2 and avoids the chain fist of the Chaos Lord, then flips him into a command terminal. The Lion then removes the chain axe from the hands of another and hits him in the face with his own weapon, then dodges the lightning claw so the Chaos Follower hits another of his own in Terminator armour. The Lion then throws the chain axe at the Chaos Lord, who is still a part of the terminal, sending him slumping down again. The Lion finds his sword. The Terminator, who had been hurt, now fights his fellow Marine as they have hit each other, and the Lion faces the Chaos Lord, and 2 others also charge. He knows the chain axes cannot enter his armour, and focuses on 3 weapons that are carried by them, the Power Fist, the Power Sword, and the Chain Fist. The Power Fist has the shortest reach, so the Lion parries and backs away. One, frustrated by the lack of damage his chain axes are doing on the Lion's armour, launches himself forward. The Lion launches the man in Terminator plate over his head into his opposite. Then the Chaos Lord's blows come, and one becomes stuck in the Lion's armour for a moment. He removes the Lord's hand and then drives the blade's point through the Chaos Lord's faceplate, and then shoots his gun into the head of the last 2, facing him. Zabriel finishes the others. Then he vows his revenge. He voxes to the enemy. The attackers, including your Lord, are now all dead. You may expect the same if you remain. And just a slight addendum to an earlier part, the Chaos Lord mentions that he is called Serifax, but that is not his name. That's leader of the overall forces that they face, and Serifax comes into the story a bit later. New ships approach in a space marine vessel and they help finish off the enemy. There are dark angels on this new ship. Before meeting them, the Lion meditates and manages to willfully move himself to Caliban. He sees the castle from before and enters it, and this time meets the wounded king. The king stares but does not react to him. The Lion asks the king how he can be healed but gets no response. Then he sees the shadows of the king's chair and other places in the area come to life like they had been in the water before. The king's eyes flash and the Lion's vision goes white and the Lion is back on his ship. Clearly some implication of the Emperor here being surrounded by chaos or the enemy. Zabriel approaches the angels from that ship and they agree to join the Lion. The Lion then goes to Echo Station and comments on the station's Xenos origin. The angel with him says that this place is needed to fix their ships, despite its origins, and the Lion thinks of the weapons his own chapter held from Old Night, the difference being that the arsenal they had held had been approved by the Emperor. The Lion wishes for another brother to be able to join him in this time, and when asked, he says even Russ, the Wolf King, had a savage simplicity about him, which would be almost welcome now, although doubtlessly infuriating. Then the Lion meets more of his sons on the station. He learns from them the leader of the 10,000 Eyes is Serifax, and that Serifax had followed Luther. When he returns to the planet of Kamarth, it has been burnt, and he's been given a message from the case leader Serifax of where he can find him. Then the Lion practices his phasing ability, finding it frustrating he must practice like a human, and he's able to transition with this a group down to the planet to face Serifax. The Lion and his allies are attacked straight away. The Lion goes after Serifax, but chains bind him, and the Lion is lowered towards an 8-pointed star on the chamber's floor, and this villain tells the Lion his plan. He says only the Emperor can save the Imperium, and he uses the fever blade to take some of the Lion's blood, and Serifax says the Emperor must die so he can be reborn and fight the ruinous powers. And the Lion sees that with what the Emperor has accomplished, even with his broken body, he can see why the Master of Mankind could be called a god due to his power level. And Serifax then continues with his supervillain monologue. He says that he will use the Lion's body to see the Emperor, and that he will have control of the body. He will remove most of the Lion's soul, but leave just enough within the shell so that it does not arouse suspicion. The Lion is able to leave the chains, but Serifax then traps him again with sigils this time. But moments after, the tip of the fever blade strikes Serifax and kills him. The hand holding it is one of his own followers. Serifax, as he dies, does strike back though at his former ally. The Lion then finds he can move and goes to his fallen son, who says Serifax, the being who he had followed for so long, had become something else, had become a traitor, leaving the path. And the Lion, for this act, for seeing his son being able to break the bond of brotherhood that had wrongly held him for so long, grants his forgiveness, and with mercy ends the traitor Marine's life. After, for what he has done, the Lion is praised as a god. And he thinks of Gilliman's account of Monarchia. If people are so eager to find a god nearby, rather than the distant figure of the Emperor on Terra, then better the Lion L. Johnson than the alternatives. The Lion later moves to that other place, and the Watcher says he might now have the strength for the path ahead. He goes to the castle and theorizes that this is some manner of space adjacent to the warp, a halfway house through which the distance and time of real space could be bypassed to some extent. He is then challenged verbally and physically by visions of all his brothers. The last is Kurz, who asks why, for his acts, he was cast as a villain, the Lion a hero. The Lion says he was not a hero, but did what the Emperor required as part of his plan to save humanity. Kurz, he says, enjoyed what he did and would have done it even if ordered not to. And the lion then sees a kite shield hanging on the wall. He touches it and can feel everything around him. All the humans hurting and bleeding and dying. All the Xenos, those abominations, and all the tiny creatures burrowing through the soil and the trees and the grass. And the wind, he can feel it all. And it's all connected, a web of power. And this is not overwhelming. This is just how he lives, instant to instant. Some insight into the Emperor and what he sees. The lion staggers at this. The shield is on his arm. He knows the touch of that mind. He's felt it before. He says the word, Father. He finishes the phantom curse, and as he does so, feels within the shield the echo of the Emperor's aegis that covered the Imperial Paris on Terra, which is anathema to the warp. And with that, he thinks the past is done. It can be buried and left behind. In the grim darkness of this far future, there is only war. Then there's one small further section. In the epilogue, the lion has reached out to the Imperium, and it's answered by the Blood Angels and Dante. Upon meeting him, the lion asks who this person is to wear the face of Sanguinius. Dante identifies himself, and Dante tells the lion that Rabute is alive, and the novel closes with, the lion's thoughts are whirling, the Imperium still exists, he's not being denounced as an impostor and plunged into an ugly civil war against his brother's sons. There are other bastions of humanity out there in the galaxy with which he can link up and fight back the darkness. However, one thought rises to the surface above all others. Rabute, I am not alone. And that's where we'll end this video on this book.